All right, we're back again. I haven't scared these two guys away yet, with the exception of Larry. I scared him away for 1 week. Hopefully haven't scared too many of you away yet. I'm Kyle Craven from the Norse Report, and I'm joined today by two of my friends and colleagues also from the Norse Report. We got Michael Ruscher and Larry Weichel. Thanks for joining us again, guys. This is another episode of Last Call. A strange one for NKU this year. It's been a weird year where it's either been we're sweeping teams or we're getting swept. It hasn't been a lot of splits. I think Youngstown State we split, and that might be the only other one, right? I think we swept Purdue, Fort Wayne, got swept 2 more times, swept 3 more times, or swept other teams 3 more times, and then we split again. So the season's come full circle, heading into Wright State. We'll talk about that later. But I just want to kind of pull out the thermometer and do a temperature check on you guys, how you're feeling with the season so far. Assuming it ended right now, they canceled the season because of COVID or whatever. Where would you guys be at? Like, this team is what, Mike?
This team is starting to play well. I think, early on, there were just so many uncertainties with COVID, how the season was going to go. Were we going to make it a full season? Were we going to have stoppages due to the virus? Unfortunately, we did early on. But I think, a result of just the quirkiness of the off season and the preseason, we saw that early on in terms of maybe some inconsistencies and just some head scratching, maybe losses. But I think now everybody, I kind of mentioned it on a couple other episodes, where I think the team is buying in and they're accepting their roles and they're doing it to the best of their abilities. And I'm kind of disappointed that we're at the last weekend and we're getting into the postseason. I'm kind of mixed, maybe, where I'm disappointed the regular season's ending, but excited at maybe what could happen in the postseason. And so we'll see what happens this weekend against Wright State and in the postseason. But there's definitely some stuff to still play for, and we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah, I think at the end of this show, we can wrap it all up with, if I don't forget, that is, with like a best case, worst case kind of deal. What's the best possible outcome that you are really, realistically expecting this season versus like what's something that would make you go, man, that was not enough. Like, would it be get swept by Wright State and lose in the first round of the tournament? Yeah, that probably would piss us all off. But, I guess where's the line? Let's cover that at the end, but just be thinking about that. Larry, how about you, man? How you feeling?
I'm actually really optimistic because going into the season.
Whoa. Hang on. Optimistic from Larry? I love it.
Well, okay. So considering how the last season ended, right? We get the big call. We're going to the show. And then, like right as we're getting out of the limo, we trip and we're told we can't go inside. So, COVID, put an end to yet another postseason run by our Norse last season. So coming into the season, we had three things that could happen. A, the season gets canceled. B, we go through the season, get into the final week, and we've got a winning record. Or C, we go into the final season with a losing record. At this point, I would have been okay. I know it sounds contrary to what I tend to say and emote, but I would have been okay with the losing record up to this point because I knew as much as we know about the roster and the recruiting and the people coming and going, I knew what we had coming in or had a decent idea what we had coming in. So to have a losing record with all that change out would not have surprised me. So in my opinion, we've got a best case scenario as we sit right now going into the final week with a winning record and a chance to kind of show out against the best team and what I think is the best team in the conference and a team that's actually now getting national recognition. I'm talking about Wright State, unfortunately, a team getting national recognition. They're receiving votes in the national poll.
You know what, man? Look, I know we're biased on this stuff, but like that is kind of a good thing. Like, I would rather it be anybody in this conference than Wright State, but like it's good that it's someone,
Exactly. I think what is good generally for one program in the conference is generally good for the whole conference. We were talking earlier today about recruiting, and if some other school in our conference inks a big time 3-4 star 5-star recruit, that would be great for say Wright State or whatever, but I think that would be great for the conference as a whole because it's going to shine a little bit of a brighter light on every game when a top talent is going to be there, and it's going to make the conference more competitive, and that's ultimately what I think every program should want. But going into the last week though, kind of doubling back, I'm really pleased where we are. I mean, we have a chance to go to our own conference tournament. We have an opportunity to make some noise there, depending on what the draw looks like. With our team, I think we all agree we're in every game until we're not. I think we go into every game knowing that we're going to stand a reasonable chance of holding our own until the final whistle. We've seen some questionable losses, some really disappointing losses, and we've seen some really, really, really great wins where we just all took a big collective sigh at the end and said, oh, thank God. I don't even care that we didn't win by 20. I just care that we won at this point. And I feel like we've had a lot of games like that. The game, the series at Green Bay, whole different story, but I'm sure we'll cover that here in a moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, my whole thing, with the 5-star recruit, Wright State, all that stuff, it's like, look, it sucks if it's not NKU. Obviously, we're all biased here in that way. We want it to be NKU, but at the same time, like, let's just say Wright State gets into the tournament as a top 60 team in net. Let's say they make it to the Sweet 16. Let's say they end the season receiving more votes for the AP Top 25. They come in the next year, have another great year, sweep us out, whatever, and they do the same thing again. This league is a 2-bid league the following year. And that's kind of like, it does help. Like, it does help everyone else. It pulls everyone else up too, because now NKU can recruit on, hey, come here and beat Wright State. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, Wright State becomes the clear favorite in the conference, which sucks. But like, it does still elevate the level of play from every other program, hopefully, in the conference, or at least the top programs, I should say, get elevated. The bottom programs maybe still struggle, but anyway, I don't really have much to add. I think most people here know, if you're watching these shows, it probably means you're reading articles, you're seeing the tweets, the posts. I'm generally speaking a pretty optimistic guy, but also fairly unfazed. I try not to get too high after wins or especially not too low after losses. I love hyping wins. Don't get me wrong. Losses, I don't sweat them too much because I always see them as like learning opportunities. To me, it's like, especially with the way the Horizon League's structured, I feel like it's structured in tiers. You either get the 1 seed or you don't. If you don't get the 1 seed, you want the 4. If you don't get the 4 because it's not a first round bye, then you want to be as high up in the top in the next 5 through 12 as you can. And at the end of the day, once you get through that first bye, there's only 1 bye now in the conference tournament, pretty much everyone's on an equal playing field. So like, when NKU won their first tournament, conference tournament, we were the 4 seed, and I'm fairly certain we beat the 9 seed Milwaukee, who would have been like 9-25 or 10-25 or 11-25, whatever it would have been, going to the NCAA tournament. So like, my thing is the season is a novel, and it's being told all the way through. And, it doesn't reach its conclusion until the last game is played. And there's no real reason to get too high or too low on any of it until then. And with this team, it's a novel it's the first novel in a 4-part series because this team's so young. So anyway, that's all I got on that. Let's talk a little bit about Green Bay. I know, Mike and I are probably going to be more reacting, Larry, to some of the points I think you said you had to make. Just real quick before you get going, generally, I mean, I feel pretty good about the series as a whole. Thought it was very evenly split, but I also think both teams are fairly, I mean, obviously we're performing a lot better so far this year than Green Bay, as far as record goes. But like, if you looked at the two teams and lined them up against each other, they're very, very similar, even down to play style. We're both playing at like a very similar pace this year and everything. Both of our best players are a lefty that are a potential freshman player of the year. Mari Davis was last year. Marquez Warwick is hopefully going to be this year. So I felt good about a split. I thought we were in it to win both games. But Larry, I really am curious to hear as you went back and rewatched some of the details you noticed and caught on to.
Well, in game 1, we dropped game 1, and my heart kind of sunk a little bit because I really felt like we were going into the series looking for a sweep. Well, I pretty much felt like a sweep was almost inevitable. Looking at Green Bay's record, it would be easy to kind of project that this was going to be a walkover, but the more I thought about it, after we lost, I went back and started reviewing a little more of Green Bay's statistics, record, playing form, things like that. And they'd not been playing poorly coming into playing against us. They had a rough beginning to middle of the season, but they kind of pulled it together and we're starting to play some decent basketball as we went to Green Bay to play them. And so I think we ran into a little bit of a underestimated foe, I think. There's just a lot of things to me that stood out. And, we debate about this back and forth all the time about what the one factor was, that 2 factors, whatever. But looking at the score differential on both games, it was pretty tight, both games. First game went into overtime and we ultimately lost. But a couple of things that stand out to me is the fouls called against both teams were right at about 20. There was no real favoritism showed. But when you look at the free throws, Green Bay hit 21 out of 26 for 86%. We had 2 more free throws attempted than them, but made 3 less. So we hit 18 out of 28 for 64%. That's, I think, 2 or 3 ticks below our season average, which is not particularly good. It's not the worst statistic in the world, but you at least want to be somewhere in the middle upper portion of your own conference in free throw shooting, and I'm not sure we're there with that percentage. But that stood out to me. At the end of the day, I think Green Bay was just more disciplined. They're on the season, they're actually a good free throw shooting team at 76%, but they kicked it up a notch, and that ultimately could have proven to be the difference between the two. One thing that stood out.
One thing I'm noticing is we're kind of, me and you, we got into it last week on the chat talking about missed free throws and I mentioned, hey, we shot a pretty good percentage for the game. And you said, yeah, but my whole thing is like, it's not so much about the percentage. It's more, we left 10 points on the board, on the, what could have been 10 easy points. Even if you just make 5 of those 10, we win the game. And it's very interesting because you just made a point about Green Bay being a pretty good free throw shooting team, and they did pretty well in the series. But if you'll remember, they missed 2 crucial free throws at the end of the first game, right? Where and granted, they still won the first game, but any one of them could have buried us in regulation. And it's just interesting. Like it just kind of reemphasizes a point we had offline, that like, it's not, it's the crossover between analytics or statistics and like actual production on the court,
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a couple different ways to look at it, whether it be percentage wise or by sheer volume. And, the point of, I guess, at the end of the day, we had more volume opportunities, but they had more volume in conversions. And I still maintain that was definitely a factor in the game. One thing I noticed that really I thought was bizarre. So we play, how long is remind me again, how long is an overtime period? 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Yeah, it's 5.
So in a 45-minute game, David Bam plays 10 minutes total. And I know we kind of harp on this every week because I think we're all big fans of what his ceiling looks like and what he projects to possibly look like. But despite the fact that he's 6th on the team in minutes per game at about 17, he's up there in foul. He's 4th on the team in fouls. So if you think about that,
which game did he only play 10 minutes in?
The first one,
Friday night.
Okay. Yeah, and did he play more in the second?
He did. He did. And his production, he was extremely efficient the second game.
Okay.
But the first game, it made me wonder. I couldn't figure out what their motivation was to literally hold, a player of his ability back. But then I thought about this, and this is really long story short, an article that I had read and pointed out to you guys earlier in the week about, David Bam's journey from the Czech Republic to, Kentucky. And in his interview, he specifically said, my game is not suited to the American game at all. He said in Europe, the game is very slow, it's very deliberate, and it's very technical. So he did openly admit, which I thought was a mature thing to do, that he had a lot of early struggles early on. He said he couldn't keep up with the game. The players were too fast. He was too slow. He was always 1 second too late diagnosing this or that. And at times I wonder if the coaches see that in practice and they use that to maybe hold him back. If they're game planning for Green Bay and they say, this is what we project them to do on Friday night.
I think physically too, Larry. I think Michael's made this point before. I think physically it becomes an issue for him as well. Like that's a reason you saw he is not a starter anymore by his own request. I mean, Mike said on the coach's show that he actually had requested that he comes off the bench. And I think they've made a concerted effort over the last few weeks to like limit his minutes played in one of the 2 games. It's kind of like, we'll see if we need him Friday night. Like he's almost like I like to think of him as like a relief pitcher. Like, because we got these back-to-backs going right now. So like in a normal season, he'd have a full day off of rest, but like, he's not only a freshman, he's not only like not been in the weight room or conditioning, all off season, but got these same struggles that everyone else has. He's also never played AAU ball. Well, I guess he's maybe played a little bit of AAU ball and like a year of high school basketball in America. But like, he's not, to your point, apt to the American game. And so like, he's got that struggle as well that could be hindering his conditioning and stuff. And so, he's just not a reliever that can go every single night. Like he needs one night on, one night off, basically.
Right. And that's actually probably a really strong point because when you're not conditioned for the American game, you're going to be slow, you're going to be late, and you're going to be a little bit clumsy. And all those 3 things lead to fouls, right? I mean, I think
mental too.
Right. So when you're 4th on the team and committing fouls, but only playing 17 minutes a game on average, there you can definitely see a really strong correlation. So I'm starting to kind of see the coaching perspective of why he can at times be a liability.
Yeah.
I still think his potential is much greater than what his current liability is. And I think that he seems like a smart kid and a good enough athlete that he'll continue to make the transition that he needs to make to continue being successful in the American game. Another thing I noticed in the game is Green Bay took a ton of 3-point shots. About 32% of their shots came from three, which I thought was kind of interesting. And the exact same, about 32% of their points Friday night came from 3-point shots. So they shot a lot from the perimeter. They were only 9 of 28, but again, in a volume game, hitting 9 is better than hitting 8, whether you're shooting 28 or 32. They hit 9 3-pointers. That's 27 valuable points, I think, right there. But we had an opportunity to, I think, Josh Jefferson, his senior guard for Green Bay, he absolutely shredded us that weekend. If you go back and look at his stats, Friday night, he scored 27 points, had 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and was 11 of 12 from the free throw line. You could look at that line and almost think like, there it is. He didn't single-handedly beat us, but he didn't make, he didn't help us at all. That's for sure. Turn around the next day, he goes in, puts up 26 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, shoots 6 of 8 from, the free throw line. This is a kid who only started 8 games up until we played Green Bay. He started the first few games of the season. Then he hadn't started a game since December. He was playing the whole time, just wasn't starting and getting substantial minutes. He comes, plays us, starts his first series in 2 months, and absolutely lights it up. So between them hitting their free throws and Josh Jefferson having the weekend of his life apparently, and playing at Green Bay, we went in playing a team that I admit now was a little better than I think we thought they were. But it was still a tough loss to come out of. We had so many opportunities to close it down. But.
Yeah, I think that was the most frustrating thing, Larry, on Friday night was just, coming into the game with a 6-game winning streak, just what I felt wasn't the energy that we had been accustomed to seeing during that 6-game winning streak. Right. And I think that kind of put us in the rearview mirror a little bit to start that game. And we spent probably 3/4 of the game trying to play catch up that night. And when we did, to force it to overtime, I don't know if maybe we had run out of a little bit of gas, but there were just some things that we hadn't been accustomed to seeing during that winning streak that were rearing their heads in the first half of that Friday night game. And, I know a lot of us had spoken about it during the in-game chat was, I think I used the term that we were as cold as the Green Bay weather on Friday night. Right. We couldn't seem to hit a shot. I mean, Trayvon was, for lack of a better term, kind of non-existent Friday night. He struggled immensely from the field. Thankfully, Bryson was there to pick up, the load and, hit a big shot down the end to get us to that overtime period. Marquez did, his usual.
What he does.
Kind of struggled in the first half, but picked up some energy in the second half to finish with 16. And, Adrian, let's all be honest, he was a beast the entire weekend and finishing with 12 and 16 Friday night, securing a lot of just really critical rebounds. But I think what was most frustrating on Friday night was just that it was there for the taking. And if not for a couple maybe mistakes here or there in the first half and just maybe some just not typical things that we were used to seeing happening, we could have stolen that game. Now, it's not to say that we would have still won the second one, but, to Larry's point, I'll gladly take the split, especially playing on the road. I mean, we were, second series, back-to-back series away from home. And that's a lot of travel time, a lot of back and forth. And so I'll gladly take a split with that one. And but one thing, and I think we need to look at that going into not only this weekend's games, but even the postseason is Adam Melita was pretty non-existent. I mean, 6 total points the entire weekend. Really was never what's, at least to me, seemed in the flow of the game. Basically was shut out in terms of points the second night. And Larry, to your point, Bam, again, Saturday night came back with a really good game, seemed to pick up a lot of scrappy points inside, whereas maybe Friday night, and to your point being that maybe the flow of the game at that point just wasn't to his benefit. And maybe Horn saw that and said, hey, I can't, you're more of a liability in there right now than an asset for us. And that's maybe why we saw such limited minutes on Friday night. But I was very happy with his performance on Saturday. He was just around the basket continually and made his presence known. And so, but the main thing though is I'm interested to see what we see out of Alita here these next couple of weeks, because we're going to need his shooting, as we go through not only this weekend against Wright State, but whatever games that we're still able to play in the postseason.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you're talking about Bam and his his Saturday performance. That was actually one of the key things I took note of for the talking about the second game, because he went from playing 10 minutes on Friday to 18 Saturday. 18 minutes, he scores 8 points, grabs 7 rebounds, and has an assist. And he was actually our third leading scorer, despite playing half the amount of minutes 4 of our starters played. So kind of putting that in perspective, we got all these starters playing, 30, 32, 34, minutes a game. He comes in as kind of like Kyle would say, kind of like a middle relief guy or closer, plays limited time, but extremely efficient. Even though he might not be the most athletic guy on the court, he may not be the one with the best knowledge of the American style or the system that we're playing. But I think that what he lacks in some of those things, he makes up for, and I think his just general maturity of the game in general. And I think we've seen him botch a couple things here and there through the season, but I think we've seen a lot more positives to look at. Because
he's got an amazing, again, he might not understand the flow of the American game as well as other players will or whatever, but there's 2 points I want to make here real quick is, number one, he's been working for 19 years on a technical skill set that nobody in this conference has. And that's the ability as a 6'9" big guy to, pirouette through the lane by taking one step and also executing a spin move in the same move. It's just, he's making moves that and to that point, he might be a little flustered by what he's seeing on the court, but I can promise you that defenses are flustered by what they're seeing out of him too. While the European game is starting to develop a little bit over in America, and I'm sure that players in the Horizon League have played against a 6'9" guy who's got some Bam-like moves. It's not an everyday thing. It's not something they're 100% used to. So he offers us an advantage there as well. And I mean, his efficiency on offense when he's on is, I think with a guy like Bam, you got to look at what he's offering on his best nights. And then you got to ask yourself, what are his worst nights due to? And I think a lot of his worst nights right now are just due to stuff that's going to fix itself, over time. You don't look at it and say no disrespect to Joko, for instance, but Joko has been here for 4 years and has never developed a three. So I think it's safe to say he probably is not going to be a great 3-point shooter ever at NKU. Adam Alita has been here a couple of years. He's never really been a great defender, definitely not a playmaker. I think he shot 3 2-pointers all season, right? So you know what you're getting out of him. But Bam, I mean, you got to look at the best nights he gives you and say that's Bam's ceiling right there, and his ceiling is high, possibly the highest on the team, maybe. I mean, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It's tough between him and Marquez, but
with Marquez comes in with a game that I think we were already really familiar with, and a style that fit our system immediately, which I think makes it really easy for a freshman to get 30 minutes a game or however much he's playing. Between he and Trevon, those two players alone on Saturday accounted for 56% of our total offense. So when they're clicking together, if it's both of them on the same page at the same time in the same game, we're in every single game. We will be in every single game. And like this game, I know Mike said that Adrian had a great weekend. He had a really, really solid weekend. A little quiet on Saturday. 7.6 rebounds is a little bit below his normal average, but he was still efficient. But I feel like when you see Adrian have a slow night or whatever, it for some reason, to me anyway, it feels like Bam seems to have a more substantial night. And I don't know if that's just me, what I'm seeing, what I want to see, or if that's what's really happening. But to see a 6'9" guy that can shoot come in and spell a guy, you know, 6'8", much stronger physically guy who has a whole different game, to see him kind of take some of those minutes or some of that load off of him and be efficient, it's really, I think, a really positive thing to see.
I'm going to use that point, Larry, to springboard us kind of to a new topic. And that's the Wright State series. I don't necessarily think that we need to like go into a full in-depth preview or anything like that. Any fans who are interested in seeing an actual like more in-depth preview of Wright State and hearing about it from someone who covers them, we'll be streaming or we'll be posting Matchup Zone shortly after this episode. We're running out of days in the week because it's a short week. So Thursday for both of these episodes. So if you're watching this one right now, Matchup Zone is probably already posted as well. Check that out. But back to what I was going to transition with, Larry, to that point, I think our only chance this weekend is we got to be creative with our lineup, and not just creative like, hey, I haven't tried this before, let's just see. No, like intentionally creative. Like I want to see, and I said it last week, I think, I can't remember if it was with you guys or someone else, but I want to see a lineup out there with Hoopman, Nelson, and Bam. Why not? Yeah. I think that's our best shot against a team like Wright State.
I think we go into this weekend with nothing to lose. I mean, Wright State at this point has really proven themselves to be, and it hurts me to say this, but it is what it is. They are the cream of the crop right now in our conference. I know that Cleveland State in some metrics are better.
Larry, I'm going to tell you right now, listen, as little as this matters, they're Wright State's number one in both Chris Hart in his algorithm that he created. They're number one in John Parker's power rankings. But okay, that's just two idiots that write for Horizon Roundtable. Most importantly, they are 100 spots higher in the net rankings. They are 100 spots higher in KenPom rankings. Those are four metrics. Again, take Chris's and John's with a grain of salt if you want to be like that. But KenPom's been doing this for 25 years or whatever. And the net rankings are literally how they determined who gets in the tournament or not. So like, to me, it's like, it's actually a disservice to, I mean, unless they're trying to do everything they can to make it a 2-bid league. And so they're trying to give Cleveland State this like easier path to the championship. And then Wright State maybe has a high enough net to maybe make it in, and like other teams can't make it, but that's screwing with, you know, that's tampering with the algorithm. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to anybody, but
right.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to rant about that.
It's good information. Before I forget to ask though, where is Wright State in the net ratings?
It's somewhere in the 50, like the 50 to 55 range.
Okay.
I think they're 50. Actually, I think they're 56 in net, 52 in KenPom.
But definitely in the 60 though, in the top 60. Okay.
Yes, they are. Good. Yes.
So you look at Wright State, and again, I know by saying it sounds self-defeatist to say we have nothing to lose, because it sounds like we're going in 1-22 and just going to throw bombs from from the mid-court or whatever and just see what lands. But I genuinely think it's not the end of the world if we go in and we bomb these two games. At this point, Wright State they're stomping everybody. They're winning games by 20 or more. They're averaging, I think, 82 points a game on the season, which is really high. They're first in the country, which I just found this out earlier today, first in the country in away game scoring differential. So they're plus 20 there. They're coming to NKU away game to play a team that they might be kind of outgunning. and they come in with those kind of numbers. Top 4 in the country in scoring differential overall, and that's across the balance of the entire schedule, not just conference, but the entire schedule they've played. So they've proven a lot already, whereas I think we've got a lot to prove. I think Wright State has a lot more to lose than anything right now. And to kind of reiterate what you said, Kyle, we have to try something different to beat Wright State. We can't go out. What's made me crazy all season, not to go off on a tangent, but the way these weekend series are built, you don't have a lot of turnaround to make adjustments. But we go into a game, say on a Friday, and lose by 12 or 15 or whatever, and we say, okay, what could we do differently? The coaches are all up at night trying to figure out what they could do differently and find a way to install that before the next evening. But we go out defensively and say, all right, well, let's run a zone. Let's run a 2-3 zone. And then you get crushed. Then the next day you go out, play the same team, and they say, what should we do today defensively? I don't know. Let's do a zone. All the zone we did last night? Yeah, let's do that. I don't see a lot of creative adjustments the entire season. But if there were a time to do that, it would be this weekend.
Yeah.
And that's really our only chance of coming out with a split or a sweep. Do something different. Wright State has 5 starters that average double digits. I mean, you can't stop one and think the whole stack of cards is going to fall because they've got a lot of good players. So,
yeah, Mike, you got anything to add to that? You haven't talked in a while,
I think you go with the old adage, you throw everything at them but the kitchen sink. To both of your points, we can't stay with what we've been accustomed to, for the entire season. There's going to be some things that we're going to have to throw at Wright State that they haven't seen on tape of us, and cause them to get a little frazzled. We talked prior to the show that in years past, the game plan was always, well, let's stop everybody else. We'll let Love get his 20-25 and, we'll take our chances and hopefully walk out with a win. But, if you look and dive deep into that roster of Wright State right now, they are more than a 3-headed monster. And we can't go with that type of a game plan because if we do stop Love, there's 3 or 4 other guys that can light us up from the outside, or if we shut them down, then, there's Love and whoever else. And so, the typical zone that maybe we've been accustomed to all season, we're going to have to get really creative with that, I think, this weekend to maybe do some traps, some things of that nature, just to really give them different looks than what they're seeing on tape and when they're scouting us. And so, I think we throw everything at them and we see what we get out of it. But I'll gladly take a split this weekend. I don't think it would kill us losing both, but gosh, a split that would be icing on the cake to me. Just again, giving a little more momentum and at least proving to these guys that, at least Wright State is beatable. And, if we were to meet them again in the tournament, that, we can have a shot.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I guarantee Scott Nagy knows what he's going to be game planning for this weekend. He's going to look at game after game and say, I think we know what to look forward to on defense. He's a smart guy, a really, really smart guy. And I don't think he's going to expect us to make wholesale changes for one series. But again, what do you have to lose? Why not try something completely different? They're so strong.
We have been pressing a little bit more.
We have
not a lot, but we're mixing it in.
Like
here's the only thing I'll say on all that is, it's when you're a football team, you run a set defense, right? You run a 3-4, 4-3. If you're the Bears from the 80s, you run the 46 or whatever it was called. And that's how you run. Like that's what you do. There's no player that comes in that changes your philosophy. If you run zone coverage, in the secondary, you're going to run zone coverage, regardless if you have a great cover corner or not. So I think that's kind of the way I attribute it to what Horn's doing here. It's kind of like Jim Boeheim in Syracuse runs the 2-3, right? Like no one ever says, hey, Jim, maybe run man this time. Like it's just his, you know what I'm saying? Like his philosophy is, no, we're going to do what we do better than they do what they do. And
Sure.
I think that the sense that I get, not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. I just think that like for all of our sanity, I think we all have to accept that Darren Horn has a coaching career of 20 something years built on a matchup zone. Tom Crean ran it with Dwayne Wade in 2003 when Darren Horn was sitting on the bench, you know, learning how to be a head coach. So it's ingrained in his DNA to run this thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, out of a timeout, we should come out in a 1-3-1 trapping like Brandon used to do. I freaking missed that too, guys. I swear.
Yeah.
Like I loved that with Jalen Tate at the top. It was awesome. But I don't think it's something we can expect for an entire game. He's not going to come out and say, it's Wright State week, so we got to run a 2-2-1, fall back into a 1-3-1 and hope to turn it over. It's not how he's recruiting players. It's not how he's coaching them, and it's not his philosophy. So I think it's just something that like while Horn's our coach, we got to kind of live with it and just hope that we get minor adjustments play by play. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know if that made any sense or not, but
I
just from what I know, like I know for a fact, like defense is the biggest thing to him. Like most coaches, you'll hear it from you guys play sports. Most coaches predicate everything on defense first, right? Defense wins championships. And he's made the matchup zone the bedrock of his system, so much so that he gets offended when people call it a matchup zone because of the negative connotation that matchup zones bring. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go off. I just,
oh no, it's good. That's good.
But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Larry.
Not to give Wright State so much credit because they are our primary key rival at this point, but they're pretty scary. I hate to sound kind of cowardly by phrasing it that way, but this team can beat you from any direction. You put in a zone, they've got so many weapons that you think you're closing off this, they're going to attack that. You think you've got them covered there, they're going to kill you down here. I just think they're so complete that without, I don't want to say a gimmick, but without some wrinkles throughout the game, sprinkled in literally throughout the game and not just coming out of one timeout, but throughout the game, little wrinkles that change it up just enough to throw Nagy off his game plan. Because these weekend series, there's just so little time to make adjustments. And you have to go in kind of with an algorithm almost. Like, okay, if this happens Friday and it goes down this way, then Saturday we have to go this way and do this way. You don't have 2-3 days to install it. You almost have to have an algorithm built in based on the outcomes.
Yeah, I agree. I've said it once. I'll say it again. The only thing I would really like to see an emphasis on for NKU is I want to see our guards playing extremely aggressive. And I love Bryson Langdon, and he's one of my favorite players on the team. But if he's going to be a liability because of his 5'9" frame, closing out on 3-point shooters, and also dropping back to help out inside, then I want to see a big lineup with Quez, take your pick, but primarily Quez, Trayvon, Bam, Hoopman, Adrian. I'd love to see Trey mixed in with his length and athleticism. I know he's going to get pushed around like a rag doll against Love, but like he's not in there to guard Love. He's in there to stop the ball from getting to Love. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I want to see, that because what killed us last year, when we had a chance last year at home, we played a lot more concentrated defense. We focused on kind of letting Love get hot early, but then also taking him out of the game when he came back on the court after his first breath. And their shooters didn't shoot well. And it's not because their shooters don't shoot well. It's also not because they fully had an off night. There's no such thing as every shooter having an off night on the same night. It's the defense does something too. So our defense played really well last year in that second game, closing out on shooters and making it difficult, as opposed to in the first game. We allowed the ball inside, let it get rotated on our ass, and they shot 12 of, I think, 22 was whatever it was, from three. And so that's my thing. I want to see length being used. And, if not now, when? That's my, that's my call for if not now, when, because I could see why he wouldn't switch up defenses, right? I could see why he wouldn't say, you know what, 25 years of running matchup zone, screw it. We're running man. This team's too good. I don't see Darren Horn doing that, but I can't see a reason why he wouldn't say, shit, man, I got this whole team of young kids. Let's see what this lineup can do.
Yeah.
Right. Change of
Kyle, and it's funny, Kyle. I mean, as you talk through there, my comment earlier was, hey, I think we need to switch some things up on defense and show different looks. But as I listen to you kind of talk through your line of reasoning, I guess my concern switches maybe more so from the defensive end to what we're going to encounter on the offensive end. And I'd be willing to bet my life that Nagy is going to look to really lock down Trayvon and Marquez and force others to beat us. And it's going to be very interesting because, let's be honest, both Trayvon and Marquez have always done a great job this year of making their shots, or making the game, or allowing the game to come to them, and getting their due, so to say. And it's going to be interesting because I think out of all the opponents that we played this year, this will probably be maybe one of the more physical that we've gone up against.
Oh,
and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, not downgrading anything that Marquez has done. He's surprised the hell out of us the entire season, and he'll continue to do so. It'll be interesting to see how he handles himself, against maybe the most physical team that we've played this year. I would love to see Trayvon just have the game of his life, but I don't want him to come into this weekend feeling that he has to be the answer for everything, because I think we've seen when he feels that he has to do that, there's a lot of maybe undue pressure on him, and he's not really maybe having the best games that he's maybe capable of having. And so I'm just hoping that these guys allow the game to come to them, but I'm also looking for other guys to step up, with Trey and Bam and AD and Hoopman, and maybe some guys that have kind of been off on the side and been a little more quiet, that they're able to step up, because I know that Nagy's going to try to shut down our two big guns, and we're going to just have to have some other guys step up. Otherwise, offensively, we're not going to have a shot.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of interesting that one of you, I can't remember which of you, mentioned about Hoopman a couple minutes ago, and I think we've got cause to celebrate for him tonight, because he did something really significant Saturday night. He hit his first free throw of the season. He's now 1 of 5 on the season from the free throw line.
That's better than Chris Vogt.
Yeah, exactly. In his 10 minutes of play, he scored 3 points, had 3 rebounds, and had a blocked shot and a ton of altered shots. And I think we were talking about it during the game. When he went in the game, he was very, very noticeable, because they kept floating him out to the key and guarding the guy with the ball. And I noticed when they were trying to take threes with Hoopman in their face, they were really throwing up some bricks. And we won the second game, but it was only by a handful of points. So if they land a couple of those threes with a Bryson Langdon in their face, maybe they get that ball up and over and in the hoop. But with Noah guarding them, who knows how many shots he altered that changed the scope of the game completely. In just 10 minutes, I mean, he had a pretty reasonable impact on the outcome of that game, I think. So I would definitely love to see more of him and see if his length helps us at all. Like I said, nothing to lose. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, we said it. I've made this comparison now probably 8 times somewhere. If you don't have another tank to match up with their tank, build a huge wall and make them drive through it or over it. So, yeah, Mike, to your point real quick, I'll make this brief on the offense. I think that's a cause for concern as well. I mean, in one respect, it's not super well. We want to slow them down, right? The Wright State, in their 3 losses in conference, I believe they've scored under 70 points all those games. And I asked Nick Lorenzen about that. What is it that's common in Wright State games? And aside from the scoring specifically, he said in general, those games were slow. They were slow paced games. Wright State was never really able to make their pace. And they were never really it's kind of like the Warriors. Remember when the Warriors had Kevin Durant just a couple years ago, and a team might be with them for first, second quarter, but then they come out in the third quarter and just bury somebody, score 46 points in a quarter, and then it was just over. Back in, I don't know if you guys are NBA guys, but that's what the Warriors call was, it was you knew that you were going to just start getting haymakers thrown at you, but you didn't know when it was coming. Might come in the first quarter, might come in the fourth, but they hit you really hard with a surge. And if you could survive that surge, then you maybe could stay in the game for the rest of the game against the Warriors. That's kind of how it is with Wright State. But in those 3 games, the surge never came. And so the way we've been playing offense this year, we're running a bunch of isolated, those kind of elbow, they call it Iverson screens, those elbow screens to kind of, Trayvon or Marquez starts off at the block, runs up off a double screen on the elbows and gets the ball in kind of the wing area, usually outside the 3, but at least within a step of the 3 or whatever. And it's kind of one-on-one at that point. It's a lot of ISO, and they're very good in those situations. And they've been able to take advantage of pretty good matchups in the last few weeks because they're individually great scorers. That's a great game plan against Wright State because it slows the game down. It puts the ball in the hands of our best player, but one of our 2 best scorers anyway, who can make plays and find open guys if they're there. The only problem with it is Wright State's guards are very good. Tanner Holden, really good. Jalen Hall, very good defender. These guys are good defenders. That makes me nervous that our 2 best players, we don't have an answer on defense for their 2 best bigs, but they definitely have an answer for our 2 best guards. So it is going to come down to the others. And I genuinely feel like it's going to be a matchup based on, our 9-10 guys. And it's going to be the Adrian's going to have his hands full. Trayvon and Marquez going to have their hands full. It's really going to come down to what do we get from everyone else on offense specifically. But anyway, I want to end this though, guys, with something. Well, first of all, is that cover it for Wright State? Do you guys have anything else to say on Wright State or?
No, I think I've been pretty clear in my thoughts on how we're looking and what I'd like to see. So.
Okay, cool. Well, I did want to kind of jump into something fun. It is, unfortunately, it doesn't feel like it too much, but it is homecoming this week. It's the last 2 home games of the season. Again, home games have felt very, very different this year than they really ever have. I imagine this is what it feels like for Boggs every year until he actually gets to come up for homecoming. But speaking of Boggs, real quick, sending some love out to him. I know he's going through some crap right now down in Louisiana with no power and stuff like that. So hoping that situation gets resolved real quick. We love him. So, but no, I wanted to end this show with something kind of fun and just ask you guys, since it's homecoming, what's your greatest, do you have a fun story from a prior homecoming, whether you were in school or out of school? Or just in general, what's your favorite part about homecoming specifically? I want to start with Larry on this one.
When I think of homecoming in college, it pretty much takes me straight to the organizations that I was involved with, because it seemed like so many activities around campus were kind of either run completely or supported heavily by different student organizations. And I was in Kyle, we've talked about this quite a bit in the past, but I was in Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. And I think all 4 years that I was at NKU, the homecoming king was an ATO, except I think there was 1 year. I feel like Jamie Ramsey won it 1 year for some reason. But that's one thing I remember is just kind of the pageantry of bonding over our organization, trying to make its mark on the campus and getting our name out there, and just kind of being recognized on a campus where Greek organizations weren't as visible as they would be on like maybe another college campus. You know, NKU has always been a dry campus, so it's been hard to build up a really, really robust Greek system. Um, I liked our Greek system, but I've also seen what it could look like when we've gone to other colleges to visit. So that's kind of what I remember most is just the organizational aspect of bonding with your brothers and just kind of reaching for different accolades and just trying to continue building up your organization's brand on campus.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Mike?
Well, I mean, I'm obviously a little more old school or a little further down the line in terms of grad years than you two. But the things that I take away from homecoming weekend, I'd say ever since we transitioned into BB&T Arena, has just been the outpouring of not only the student involvement, but just the local crowds, whether it's the season ticket holders, alums coming back, and really just packing BB&T as much as we possibly can, and just the energy and the vibe. Being a season ticket holder, you know, my seats fortunately are down close to the floor, and being close to the student section, and you know, my wife and I would always get a kick out of just watching the students and just the excitement and the involvement, and wishing that was something that we could see every home game. But homecoming, it's just always, it's special, you know, seeing the organizations come out and, you know, with the individual kings and queen candidates, and, you know, a lot of the alums coming back, and just, it's just a different type of game, you know, the intensity, the environment is different than just any other home game. And, you know, I don't have any specific game or anything that stands out. It's just, that was always one game that I always, you know, looked forward to because I knew the crowds were going to be there. I knew the energy was going to be there. And, you know, any of the local establishments, you know, pre-gaming or different things like that, you know, people were excited. You know, it took forever to get into the parking garages because traffic was a mess, but you knew that people were going to be in there and it was going to be loud. And more times than not, it tended to end in a Norse victory. So it's definitely going to be different this year. Believe me, I would love to be in my seats at BB&T with crowds that we've seen in the past, but unfortunately it's going to be different. And, you know, we'll all, you know, Norse Nation will have to send positive vibes, you know, through our TVs and through our computers this weekend. And hopefully, you know, we shock the world and, you know, maybe pull out a game or two this weekend.
Yeah. What's funny, go ahead. Sorry.
Keep in mind when Mike and I were undergrads, all of this was taking place in Regents Hall. So
yes.
Oh yeah.
You take all of this excitement, pageantry, sheer volume and numbers of humans, and pack it into a lunchbox, and everything is magnified in a much smaller area, you know. So
well, I currently have COVID PTSD right now. So just the idea of that many people in that small of a building just makes the hairs on my arm stand up.
Well, and Larry brings up a good point because during the years of Regents Hall play, you really kind of had the diehard fan that was there outside of the student and the organizations. It was nothing like what we see nowadays. You know, hell, Larry, you can attest to this. The bleachers in Regents didn't even come out fully. You know, if it was a packed house, I recall, you know, the Southern Indiana games in the Indianapolis games where if you sat on the one side, you had to sit on the part of the bleachers that wouldn't fully come out. So you had to climb. You had to climb 6 or 7. It was almost climbing a ladder to get up there. And you hoped like hell that you didn't have to get down to go to the bathroom or concessions or anything because you sure as hell weren't going to get back up. And so it was a totally different vibe. And to your point, Kyle, yeah, in COVID, if we were dealing with that in Regents now, it'd just be a recipe for disaster.
Well,
But
if we can't figure it out in a 9,000 person arena,
well, exactly.
But it's not our fault. It's not it's the Horizon League, obviously.
Yeah, but I think I read something on one of the things that were sent out by the Alumni Association. I think the average attendance at most of these homecoming games the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years is close to like 5,000-6,000, maybe a little over 6,000.
It's always the poll sitter. It's always the one that pulls all the. It's what do you call that? Whatever. It's the benchmark.
Right.
That's the benchmark game, and that's actually, Mike. I'm glad you brought that up. Were you done making your point? Because that was going to transition.
Well, no, I think, and to that, and I'll let you elaborate on it even further. Those were always the games because, as a fan, you always wanted to see what that place was going to look like with fans in the upper levels of BB&T.
Yeah, absolutely.
And homecoming always allowed that, because if you looked across the floor from where you were sitting or over your shoulder from where you were sitting, there were always people on both sidelines. And that was the cool thing. I've always said all these years, the day that this program gets to where we can average 7,000, 8,000 and fill that lower bowl consistently, and then take what we can get in that upper bowl, God, that would just be huge. And so, that was always the cool thing to look at is, hey, we've got people in the upper levels for these games. And that was always an exciting thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is, for me, I always look at homecoming as a milestone in the season. And I was thinking back about, like, for this question specifically, I'm the one who posed it. And I was thinking, like, man, I got to have a fun memory from homecoming. I honestly don't even have a great recollection. And it's not because I was too drunk to remember or whatever, but, like, I literally just don't remember homecoming all that much from undergrad. It's more what I've looked at it from the lens of, like, a fan who wants to see the program grow. And the way I look at homecoming is it's the greatest marketing opportunity that program has to offer. And a couple of reasons why. To Mike's point, you got the lower bowl, or the upper bowl is, last year we had 2 full sections in the upper bowl. Those are fans that are there on general admission. If they have an awesome time, they're coming back. Maybe not like consistently, but they're coming back again. The student section is completely full because everyone's there to watch the first half and then get to the homecoming announcement or whatever, right? But, like, if we can get those fans in the student section, if we can get 30% of those students to have a blast and, like, want to come back again, like, it's such a good, like, retention opportunity. And I always look at it like, especially after this year, man, like, fan engagement, I've noticed anyway, the athletic department tells me that their digital engagement's way up this year. And I'm like, you're full of it. But that's what they told me when I asked. But what I've noticed fan engagement being way down. And we get lulls like that in a normal season with attendance too. But we always hit a certain point in the season where it's like, we'll have a game that was really exciting. And then it, like, that boosts attendance for a little while. And then we'll kind of, the holidays come and then we'll fall back into a lull. And then we'll have another big game and that boosts attendance for the next couple. And one of those ones that really carries us home, usually into, like, the Wright State series at the end of the season, is homecoming. That's the final, like, benchmark of the season where it's like, if we bang this one out, then, like, the next 2 home games, usually homecoming, then senior night, or I'm sorry, usually Wright State senior night, whatever, is going to be awesome attendance. And that's how I look at it, to your point, Mike, from, like, a program building perspective. Like, it's all about making people have an awesome freaking time and wanting to come back. And I know that the athletics department uses a bulk of their budget for the year on hyping up homecoming, or at least their marketing budget. So that's I'm excited. It's going to be a crappy homecoming this year in terms of not being able to be there, but I'm looking for the positives. I think it's sucks this year. We're not going to get to see Boggs and all that and his nice kicks or whatever, but, like, It just means next year is going to be even more awesome.
Mhm.
And hopefully we don't schedule Wright State next year for homecoming.
Yeah.
But anyway, or Milwaukee if they end up getting Patrick Baldwin. But that's all I got, guys. We play Wright State this weekend. Everyone should tune in. It's Friday, Saturday. I don't even know the times of the games, but we'll be posting about them. Mike makes the post every day, so pay attention on Twitter to Mike or Norse Report, and keep an eye on the Norse Nation fan page if you are on Facebook, and you can look at Norse Report as well on Facebook if you're there. So, guys, anything to say? Any last thoughts?
Nothing I can think of. It looks like Friday night the game is 6 p.m. Saturday night 5 p.m. So 6 and 5. Friday at 6, Saturday at 5.
Well, it should also be noted that Saturday night's probably going to be senior night too. And I know we technically have one senior, Adam Alita, right now. So it's a weird year, but teams do seem to be celebrating senior night, regardless if their player is going to move on or come back or whatever.
Right.
My guess is if the opportunity is afforded to him, he'll come back, but we'll see. It'll still be, tune in early if you can. I don't know if they're going to do a ceremony early before the stream or the broadcast starts, or if they're just going to show us like a clip of it. But try to get on the ESPN app a little early if you can that day.
Hey, Kyle, one thing to think of is I don't think it'll be maybe viewable on the ESPN app, but I do know that
the live shows or the pre-shows
through the live pre-game show that they do for the home games that the athletic department does, they may possibly show any type of ceremony that they're doing.
No, they usually do. You're right. They usually do a little bit of shoot around after they're done with their programming. Right. I think it'd be really cool if I don't know if you want to make a separate post on that on the Norse Nation page, or if that might deflect people away from the game chat, but maybe even throw it in the game chat to try to boost people out to go watch that.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, no, definitely people should tune into that. At the very least, that's usually like a 30-minute show. At the very least, you can jump on for the last 15 minutes, and that's usually game roll or the warm-up lines and stuff like that from a sideline cam. So, all right, cool. Thanks, guys. It is 9:31 on Wednesday night. I'm tired, and so I'm going to end this thing, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right.
Norse. Hey, guys.
Peace. Go Norse.